Hello and welcome back to the Byte-Sized podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Garzon, and I'm accompanied today by my co-host, Alexandro Lohr and
Hello.
Alejandro Perez.
Hello.
Video games have been with us for a long time, an ever-changing topic many enjoy and dedicate time to. On today's episode of the Byte-Sized podcast, we will be discussing how video games have impacted our society, as well as how games are evolving into the next era of entertainment. With us today as our guest speaker, we have Rafael Bequer. So,
Hello.
Rafael, how do you feel video games have impacted society?
I feel like they have a great impact on society depending on which view you are in society. You could either be the person who plays the game or the person who's like it's outside and looking at the people who play the game. And there's a lot of views comparing like the two type of people, because the people that play the game could have very positive views while the other people have negative views since they don't partake in the actual playing the game.
Yeah, you see a lot of those views online in the media, people sort of ostracizing video games because, violence, right?
Oh yeah.
Video games have caused a large controversy between everyone in society, really. We've seen many examples of older generations mostly hating on video games, while younger generations are having a more nicer attitude towards video games, as they are the generation that plays it the most. It's been really just changing over and over.
And so, how do you feel about the comments made by the critics who villainize video games? Do you feel it has some sort of basis to it, or do you think it's just completely unfounded?
I feel like it's could be a little unfounded since not every single critic plays video games. So maybe they just base off the media or like some research that they have done other than actually being the ones that play the game and being under the effect of playing the video game.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I see all the people that make these claims or these opinions online having zero experience actually playing them or trying them out and seeing the effect that they have on people. And
I mean, it all comes. I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry. It all ultimately comes down to like the stigma behind video games. Like it's even since like the '80s when video games first boomed, like in the market. Video games have just been ostracized because of they've been seen as violent and have a negative effect on children, especially at young ages. When there have been studies recently that have even confirmed that they've had positive effects on children, increasing like their hand-eye coordination, for example. So
yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how they might be more engineered to help people in the future train those reactions, if ever, or maybe even to see them in the medical field. I mean, we're seeing a lot of new changes in games, new mechanics, new more evolutions in games, completely different games that we've ever seen in the past. And so it's interesting to see how things will progress. What's your take on that, Rafael?
I think that like I feel somewhat like the same, because not every single video game is about violence or competition. Not everything's about shooting the other team or like gaining an advantage. Some video games are about puzzles, solving puzzles with friends, or like how you react to certain types of situations, and those can help a lot in actual real life situations because they train your brain.
And all of this we've seen is just changing and changing and changing over over our timeline. Just in the past, it was one thing. Now it's changing into being another thing, a different effect on society. So, Rafael, what do you think we would see in the future as video games impact society? Do you think it'll impact it in a more negative or in a more positive way as time progresses and video games change?
I feel like it is going to have a better, like a more positive effect, since there's more and more people every day that try out different games, since there's different categories that come out every single day. So I feel like sometime in the future, there's going to be like video games for almost anything that you can imagine, to either like help training or like literally anything.
I mean, recently we've seen uprisings in simulator games, for example, like even trucking simulators, as funny as that might seem, are very insightful when it comes, or even like computer building simulators are great learning tools for learning how to actually start. Even if you don't have the actual resources, like start learning and getting an advantage in these types of fields. Even Microsoft Flight Simulator, something that's come out relatively recently, is something that's been praised for having incredibly realistic controls.
And it all comes down to, again, the ever-changing nature of the industry. you're always seeing developers trying to come up with something new, trying to be the new big thing. And in a market that ubiquitous, they have to find a way to separate themselves from all the others. And for example, there's a new game that's recently come out in beta called In Silence, and it's introduced a completely new mechanic that I personally have not seen in any other video game. Alex, do you care to explain it?
Yes, of course. So, In Silence is a game that came out recently, as you said, Kyle, that introduced a new factor of playing the antagonist of the game. So, to basically summarize the game, there's going to be 4 to 6 survivors, that their ultimate goal is to collect carports that are scattered around the map, to assemble a vehicle and escape a monster that is trying to chase them down and basically just catch them. This concept has been pretty common over time, as we've seen in games like Dead by Daylight and so on. But there's an added twist this time. While playing the monster, instead of actually being able to see like normally on any 2D screen game, your vision is extremely blurred out and the screen is extremely tinted. So it would be weird to assume how would you play the monster if you could barely see. They added the factor of having to listen. So they gave the monster enhanced hearing. So as playing the monster, you get to hear sounds from everywhere, their directions, and that's how you can locate the survivors and try to catch them. So, Rafael, what do you think of this new mechanic? Do you think it has possible better application into video games, or it's just a complete waste of time?
Oh yeah, I think it's a better application to video games, since it's not only focusing on the fact that you have to pay attention to what's going on the screen with your eyes. It focuses on other subjects of senses, such as hearing, and hearing is a great way of training it. So not only does it help you develop more ways to actually react to things in real life, but it's training your other senses other than touch by memorizing the controls of the game, or eyes memorizing to see what to do. But you're also listening in to realize small details about the game, which I think in the future is going to help a lot.
I feel like titles like these, especially In Silence, have provided innovations. I feel like recently we've had more innovations towards our senses more than anything else, as we've seen with virtual reality, alternate reality, and so on. Eventually, we might even be able to use our smell, our touch, eventually even our taste to interact with video games. And I feel like that'll really broaden the market and actually, bring a lot of variety to future games that'll be coming out.
And it all comes down to wanting to immerse the player more into the game. The immersion is the big topic for video game developers now, is how can we get the player to feel as if they're in the game? And I feel like now we're getting a lot of innovations that are helping that, especially now with the advent of virtual reality, to the point where now you can bring it around with you. You're able to seamlessly walk around. Some controllers even let you feel with each individual finger. And so it's interesting to see how they'll adapt to the senses and, again, immerse the player more in the future. There's another game now by the name of Phasmophobia that's gained quite a bit of notoriety because any sound that you make personally with your mic is actually affects you via the in-game artificial intelligence that will react to your sounds and actually react to it when you say the antagonist's name. Can you tell us a bit more about that, Alejandro?
Sure. The game's premise, it has to do with, if any of you have seen Ghostbusters, it's basically Ghostbusters. You're hired by an anonymous source to investigate a building that has been haunted by a supernatural being, whether it's a spirit, a revenant, a poltergeist, even an oni from Japanese culture. And your job as the quote-unquote Ghostbuster is to actually discover what type of ghost it is and try and quell, I guess is the word, the situation, and try and how else do I say this? Yeah, to try and appease the supernatural being. So you're given multiple tasks throughout the night. Try and put down salt across the building, light candles, try and appease the ghost. You're putting down radios across the building to try and see if you can pick up audio signals from the ghost. And as you're doing these steps, any audio that you're making with your mic is something that directly affects the AI of the ghost, and actually the ghost interacts with you back according to what you say or what you do via your mic. So, for example, the ghost name could be, for example, John Smith. And if you call the name John Smith via your microphone, the game will act accordingly and actually, like, for example, like flicker the lights or turn on a faucet in the bathroom or something. And you'll get readings with your equipment that'll actually help you distinguish what type of ghost it is.
And so it comes back down, again to the immersion and what else can we bring in new. Are there any mechanics that you'd like to see in the future, Rafael?
Oh, definitely more like Alejandro said, more senses into VR games. Since now touch, hearing, and seeing have been like the main focus. Maybe sometime in the future, I'd like to see like smell being introduced into the whole thing, and also like taste to see how like the features would affect the futures of games.
Maybe even in like a cooking sim, for example, you could just be prepping these quote unquote virtual recipes and actually be taste testing them to see if they're appropriate to be sending out, maybe like a Hell's Kitchen type of, idea. I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, these innovations are could be, revolutionary for the gaming industry.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up this episode. We greatly appreciate your insight and your perspective on the topic, Rafael.
Of course.
All right, that has been episode 2 of the Byte-Sized podcast. We'd like to thank you guys for listening in, and we will see you guys next time.